very warm welcome to Brand Equity with me, Sonali Krishna. Today I'm joined by a guest who by far is one of the world's most influential businessmen. He's seen many rise and falls, and he's also seen the best and worst of times. So if anybody had to give us an inkling of what the future beholds for the marketing, advertising and media landscape, he would be our best bet. I'm talking about none other than Martin Sorrel. Thank you so much for joining us. Truly a pleasure having you on ET Now and Brand Equity.
Good to see you again, Sonali. I hope you're safe and well, and your family is safe and well, and everybody's watching is coping as best they can with this terrible crisis that we faced. So I wish you all well, and to my colleagues in India as well. As you know, we've started up in India yet again, and even to my ex-colleagues at WPP, I hope they're all safe and well, and their families are all safe and well, and their colleagues and their families all safe and well. So I send our best wishes from everybody here.
Thank you so much, Martin. I have to start this interview by asking you, A, that, I hope you're well and your family is safe, but B, for a man who's so used to being on the move, has lived most of his life on a jet plane, how does it feel to be grounded and working out of home?
Well, it's not good news for the airlines, but actually I'm quite enjoying it. I mean, I sort of feel in a way not re-energized, because I'm re-energized anyway, but further energized. Having said that, it's more efficient. Less breakfasts, less lunches, less dinners. Probably my waistline is a bit better. I feel a bit fitter, and we're better organized. So we start about 8 in the morning, and we finish, given our American presence, about 8 or 9 in the evening. I think patterns will change. Office patterns have already changed. Interestingly, we've already cut down the number of offices we have. We've already disgorged some leases. You remember that we've added about 9 companies, 6 on the content side and 3 on the data and programmatic side. So we have numerous leases in the same cities. So, for example, here in London and New York, we're jettisoning some of our leases and consolidating our properties far faster than we thought we were going to do. So integration to our unitary model is moving faster. So far, so good, Sonali. You saw that Google and Facebook are extending working from home till the end of the year. So I think this is something that is going to become a feature of our lives, and our people, basically the younger people without kids, young couples, probably welcome the flexibility a bit more. Less fixed commuting time, more variability. And I think what is going to happen is that people will come back to the office for fewer periods of time. For example, I was talking to the editor of a major newspaper here yesterday, and she said that she'd polled her 30 top journalists, and they had said very interestingly that they'd prefer not to come back into the office 5 days a week. They prefer to come in 2 or 3 days a week. And I think that's the pattern that you're going to see. So real estate is, I don't think, going to be a very pretty picture in some cities, although places like Bangalore, places like Silicon Valley, Sao Paulo, Buenos Aires, which are tech hubs, or Silicon Fen here, will get more popular. So it's interesting times, Solani. Not all bad. Not all bad.
Going by the word of the street, Martin, with you becoming more effective than you were before the world changed, rumor has it that your competitors are having nightmares because nobody wants a more effective Martin Sorrel. Having said that, I would really want to focus on this historical plague movement that the world is undergoing, something very unique and really the unthinkable which has happened. And you've said in your commentary that you were expecting a V-shaped recovery. I want to pause and just look at that V-shaped recovery for a moment, because world over people have been speculating on the type of recovery we can expect going forward. We don't know when and how, but there is speculation, and most people have also have seemed to suggest that it is possibly a W-shaped recovery than a V-shaped recovery. So could you just bring to the fore why you're betting on a V-shaped recovery?
I think, backing up for a minute, the Bank of England about the worst recession for 300 years in the UK. We're just about to hear the latest unemployment statistics from America, and it'll be the worst level of unemployment for 49 years. So with that said, the reason that I'm bullish or more V-shaped, and just to elaborate on the V-shape, I think there will be V-shaped recoveries in certain verticals. For example, in tech, in pharma, where we've seen continuous growth, in some areas of CPG. I mean, if you look at Procter and Gamble, they jettisoned their food business many years ago, so their sales in the Q1 were up by 7%. Driven by online and by consumer needs, it's true. But Unilever, on the other hand, has food delivery business going to hospitals and to institutions and restaurants and hotels. Obviously, badly hit. An ice cream business which has no distribution, badly hit. But they also have cleaning products. So you see, Nestle has done reasonably well. People are snacking more. Mondelez is doing reasonably well for that same reason. So you will look, travel and hospitality has been decimated. So it varies from vertical to vertical. But having said that, the fiscal stimulus that we've seen in the Western world, less so in China, because interestingly, China has not furloughed people. They've not subsidized people. The banks have not lent to the extent you saw the Chinese banks reporting yesterday, reporting strong profits and no big provisions because they haven't lent to small business. Interesting difference in the way that it's gone. But effectively, what's happening is that fiscal stimulus is as big as we've ever seen in the economy, as big as we've seen in wartime. And I think that provides the stimulus. And if you look at America, the amount of money that is being pumped into lower middle income households is so great. The savings rate will go up. It may go up in April or May, but there'll be money. I mean, those workers are receiving in subsidy considerable amounts of money that will be deployed in the economy. In Europe alone, I heard Ursula von der Leyen talk about $13 trillion being deployed into the EU economies on its own. So I think what we're seeing is the benefit of that fiscal stimulus and its immediacy, because the other unique thing about this recession, apart from it being different to other ones, more like wartime, is it happened at warp speed. It happened so quickly. The markets were down 30% or whatever it was, whichever indices you look at, within 23 to 28 trading days. Similarly, the recovery in the markets has been at warp speed too. When Ray Dalio points out, the hedge fund manager, probably the most successful one in the world, points out that when you get that sort of action quickly, when the correction is quick, it has the effect of compressing the impact. So I think you have to be a little bit more optimistic. And to be frank, Sonali, I want to be optimistic as well, because I think as we look at our businesses, we can call it as it is. We can say that we're going to have a very tough Q2. Our clients are going to have a very tough Q2. It'll be what I called a bloodbath. But having said that, you have to look forward to the future. And I think Q3 will be better from a relatively low level. I underline that. Q4 will be better. And then as we get into 2021, as the Bank of England said yesterday, we'll see recovery. So I tend towards the V-shaped school. There will be U-shapes by sector. There will be L's. Travel and hospitality will take a long time to recover. And there may be W's, as you suggest, where biggest risk to or biggest likelihood on the W is that you get reinfection, particularly when temperatures fall. I mean, this is an issue I've discussed with people in India. And when you get a reinfection, you have that problem.
other week, I was doing a panel discussion with the Indian leaders of the industry, and Agnello Dias, who I think you've met a couple of times, who you said referred to this moment as the much required catharsis of the industry. You've called it the Darwinian culling. What exactly, in your opinion, will be the impact and the outcome, post the lockdowns getting lifted, post some sort of a semblance of a normalcy, being witnessed across different parts of the world?
There will be a next normal. We're not going to go back to normal. I mean, for the digital transformation has been accelerated by COVID-19. At the consumer level, we're at home, we're locked down, we're online shopping, we're educating our kids online, we're communicating online like you and I are doing, and we'll do that more. So that will accelerate. For media owners such as yourselves, you will be doing more online presence. You'll be doing less live conferences and more online conferences. And last but most importantly, enterprise managers, the people who run companies in India, for example, instead of being worried about digital transformation because of the disruption that it brings to their organizations, will accelerate because they have nothing to lose now. They were worried about disturbing the status quo before. Now, all bets are off because it's such a disaster. We might as well get on with it. And my colleagues, Wesley Tahar, who runs Media Monks, and Pete Kim, who runs MightyHive, were on a call with 12 CMOs and CDOs, chief digital officers from the US a couple of nights ago. And it was really interesting that all 12 of them said their senior management are pushing them to change more drastically. We're going to see changes in office habits. We've already discussed that. There's going to be a smaller footprint, I think, and people will have more flexible working hours, and people will welcome that. They'll be working 24/7, always on. But coming back to the comment about, unfortunately, the government aid, which was aimed at smaller companies, because of the technicalities and bureaucracy, has ended up going to the bigger companies. You look in our own industry, a slightly ridiculous situation here in the UK, where WPP, for example, boasting of colossal liquidity, true or not, receives £600 million from the government, because it's important in the context of the UK economy, and obviously it has a large number, 10,000 or so people in the UK that they want to protect. Understandable, but not where the money is needed. The Darwinian culling I referred to is the culling of the small and medium-sized firms. That will be a disaster. I think the Bank of England or some advisors said there could be 600,000 bankruptcies in small and medium-sized businesses here in the UK. So the implications for small business are huge. And you look at India, goodness knows what is happening to the retail and wholesale infrastructure inside India as a result of the virus and the lockdown. And, that's a political point as well, because Modi is quite well aware of the political force that will unleash if that sector of the economy is eviscerated. And I think that's a real problem. It's very interesting. The Facebook investment into Jio, into Reliance, Mukesh Ambani's Reliance, I think is a brilliant move, both by the Ambani family and Reliance and Jio, and by Facebook. I think it's interesting that Facebook is using this opportunity when everybody else is looking at their boots, they're looking at the sky. They're expanding their Zoom-like, Messenger-like facilities on the Facebook platform. They're investing a lot more in their branding. We've seen a huge surge in companies wanting to look at what they did on a live basis virtually. So, for example, there's a lot of B2B activity around conferences. The big conferences where the tech companies will sell licenses or products or services. And we're in a series of negotiations and discussions about how we can convert live events into virtual events. And that's going to be very powerful. I mean, why should the World Economic Forum, for example, be 1 week, at the top of a mountain in Switzerland in January or in August in Switzerland when you can do it equally efficiently. That's again, we're coming back to the V shape. That's again why I am so bullish. Take India. We underestimate the quality of the thinking, the intelligence, the entrepreneurial ability of the Indians. And in technology, if you look at the hubs that you see in a place like Bangalore, colossal opportunities.
You've always had a soft spot for India, and that's heartening. But I want to ask you a direct question in terms of the industry we operate in, and nobody better than you to answer this directly. Who will die and who will survive?
Well, look, the strong will get stronger. So if I look at it from a sort of a publisher point of view or tech company, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Alibaba, Tencent, TikTok, those 8 companies are really going to come out. The Adobe, Salesforce, Oracle, those 11 companies. IBM will do well out of this. SAP will do well out of this. Twitter and Snap and Pinterest on a smaller scale. Baidu. Obviously, Spotify, Netflix, all of those companies, which are the heart of our client community, if I like, because half our $400 million of revenue comes from tech. They're vibrant at the moment, even in the teeth of this vicious recession. So they're going to be stronger. If you look at the agency side, the holding companies will remain, but they are faced. I wrote an essay for the annual report, which came out yesterday, which is entitled Swallows and Albatrosses. The problem that the holding companies have is the albatrosses around their neck. And, I was at WPP and up until 2 years ago, as you know, for 33 years, having founded the business. And so I'm partly responsible for this. The albatrosses are a dead weight. And the only way, all 6 of the companies, the holding companies, are listed. You could say that Havas is not because it's buried inside Vivendi. So let's talk about the other 5. All of them are exposed because they have these traditional creative, look, in New York, where a creative director will cost, let's say, $2 million a year to put in place. Do you think, Sonali, that with traditional creative declining every year in terms of revenues by 2, 3, 4, 5%, that creative director has reduced his or her salaries or expenses by 2, 3, or 5%, 4 or 5% for the last 5 or 6 years? The answer is no. Do you think that the digital people on the other side, whose businesses have been growing at 20% per annum, have been increasing their costs by 20% per annum? The answer is no. So you get an imbalance inside these companies where the weight of the cost base of the tradition. So you'd have to literally blow them up. And I don't think, with the people running the holding companies are managers. They tend not to be owners. I mean, the difference with Havas is Vivendi is owned by its management. I mean, the Bolloré family control and have a very significant investment exposure. None of the managers, the board of WPP, including the chief executive and the CFO, have no shareholding in the company. I mean, it's virtually non-existent. And if, last year, for example, Mark Reed took, I think it was £800,000 in a bonus. Now, that was a bonus that he could have waived in the context of the coronavirus crisis, but he didn't. Instead, he's sending out notes saying, would you voluntarily, and when you ask somebody voluntarily inside a company to do it, there's a lot of pressure on you to do it. He's sending out notes saying, take a 20% cut. And the new CFO, who hails from the retail industry, was in the retail industry for 14 years, sort of jauntily says, we've got flexibility in our costs, and we're going to reduce the days that people spend in the company from 5 days to 3 or 4 days. He's smoking something. He doesn't understand the business. Coming back to your question, The big will survive in our industry. Outside our industry, with the media companies and the tech companies, or the tech media companies, as I would call them, they will get stronger. They will dominate. And what they've done, just to expand the point a little bit, really interesting. Amazon, 25% increase, 26% increase in revenues in Q1, profitability surging, but Jeff Bezos has invested $4 billion in hiring 175,000 more workers, more people, so increasing employment, and in safety measures for his people. I know there's controversy around that, but he's done a very good job on that. So I think they will be okay. In our industry, the holding companies will survive, but they will be faced with tremendous pressure. And there may be, net, if private equity or an activist investor became interested in the sector, you might see some fireworks. You might see some breakups. If you said to me, what's the solution? I think the only solution is to break the companies up. That's the only way, that's the best way for them to go forward. So Ogilvy, you de-conglomerate the conglomerate, and you spin off Ogilvy as a separate company, or you spin off Group M as a separate company, or you find a new owner for Ogilvy, or you find a new owner for Group M, the same for Gray, the same for Y&R, which is now with VML, and the same for JWT and Wunderman. That model doesn't work anymore. The model, the fragmented model doesn't work. The unitary one, as we're trying to deploy at S4, is, I think, the one that will work.
Before I let you go, very briefly tell me, is the world going to see a new pecking order? Are we going to see, especially Asia Pacific and, of course, other markets, fast-moving markets that the world was betting on, change? And is there going to be a new leader, a new world leader in terms of leading the way forward?
Well, a really interesting question. So I think the bookends are going to win. The Americas, North and South America, and Asia Pacific, let's call it China and India, are going to be the winners. The thing that worries me, we will expand our business in Western Europe. We'll do well in Western Europe. But I think the future for Western Europe is a difficult one. Western Europe, as a proportion of worldwide GDP, has declined over the years, and that will continue to be the case. But the question you're raising is a really big and important one. I think the biggest problem we face, and I was glad to see this morning, for example, that the US and China have resumed their first phase trade negotiations, tariff trade war negotiations, and there was a little bit more positive rhetoric. But the state of US-China relations is really bad, and all the noise surrounding, for example, the origination of the virus. Did it come from a laboratory in Wuhan, or did it come from the wet markets? And the World Health Organization has a strong view that it came from the wet markets, and it wasn't, humanly created or an accident in a human laboratory. That sort of rhetoric around, if it is rhetoric, that sort of rhetoric is not creating harmony. And the two biggest problems that we face, apart from climate change, are US-China relations. The urge, who's going to be top dog, the rise. Now, if you went back in history, it was the rise of the Dutch Empire and fall, the rise of the British Empire and fall, the rise of the American Empire, and is it on the decline? And the rise of the re-rise of China from 200 years ago, and its relationship with the US. Historically, unfortunately, when you've had two nations of that size competing with one another for the top dog role, you've often had war. If you read that book, The Thucydides Trap, that discusses that issue. So there can be some bad consequences, but that issue of the US-China relationship is a real big issue. The other issue, just quickly, is developing versus developed countries. And it's really important in an Indian context. I hope that the challenges of COVID, and I'm a great believer in Prime Minister Modi and what he's done for India, as you know, and I believe it will continue to be the case. But I wouldn't want to see what he's done for India and how it's improved the progress and image of India around the world. I wouldn't want to see that undone by a growing gap between the developed world and the developing world, what I call the fast growth world. That is another big challenge. So those two things, US v China and potential widening of the gap of inequality, is a real, those are the big issues.
Thank you so much, Martin. This was truly as insightful as I expected it to be. But having said that, I'm letting you go now, but I prefer meeting you in person and doing an interview. I know the new normal is this, but I would any day go back and meet you in person and do this interview. But thank you so much. It was truly my pleasure.
We will do that as soon as possible. Just stay well, stay healthy, stay safe. And same for everybody who's watching this, and all my colleagues at S4 and my colleagues at WPP, because I still own 2% of the equity.